Hello, welcome back again. We're here with the Law of Biblical Mechanics podcast. Woo! This is our ninth episode, okay? And this is including our Spotify. We have our three lives. I hope you all have been tuning in. Give us feedback. We'd like to hear from the audience. We're here with Ernest R. Roberts III again. And we're just going to be talking about the godly stewardship here. And our roles in that. So, Ernest, I want you to start us off, as you always do, with a nice Bible verse that can get us going.
Well, absolutely. Well, to everyone, thank you. It's a blessing to be back on again. I can't believe how fast 2025 is moving. We're already into the Labor Day weekend, and I hope everyone is moving forward in their life purposes. And I think that at the end of the day, we all are here to learn and to grow. And, again, it's a pleasure to be back on with you again, as usual. And we were going to get into it. I really love these times that we are able to kind of disseminate information because I learn when I go back over these things myself that no one has everything down pat, right? We see in part and we learn in part, right, as human beings. So I think it's very important that we can have continuous learning and continuous growth. It's very important. So we're going to start with this concept of stewardship, godly stewardship. And this is very important. This has kind of really helped me in not only my career, my personal life, again, in a lot of New Testament in the Bible, people are familiar with it. There are a lot of parables that Jesus mentioned. Parables are hidden truths. And this is a big one. It's the parable of the talent in Matthew chapter 25, verses 14 through 30. I won't go through the whole thing. It's quite lengthy. When you get an opportunity, I suggest you study it out and do some research on it too as well. But basically, it's a parable of the talents. So basically, in the story, the talent is a unit of measure of currency or money. Obviously, I talk about in the book that talents are things that people have innately. And just want to just paraphrase that every human being on the planet has talent, has something, a purpose in them that no other person on the planet can do. I know that's hard to imagine with almost 8 billion people on the planet now, right. But the uniqueness of the Creator to put these different gifts and abilities in people should not go understated. So basically, the parable of talent is perfect godly stewardship. So basically, the story goes there was a master or a manager that was going away on a trip. And he had three managers, I guess sub-managers that he gave talents to. One was 5 talents. One he gave 2 talents, and one he gave 1 talent. Now, I know it seems like the 1 talent person or the 2 talent person wasn't as important as a 5 talent person, but he did it each according to his gifts. So the manager was well aware of the capabilities of the sub-managers that he had in place. So he knew their abilities. And one wasn't more important than the other because they may have had more talents or more responsibility. Everyone had an opportunity to move up to the next level. So the story goes, the manager went away and the 5 talent person basically did business and gained another 5 talents. The 2 talent person did the same thing. The 1 talent person took his talent and buried it in the ground. And so after a long time, the master comes back and wants an accounting. The first thing he wants to do is find out, what did you do with the talents that I gave you? What did you do with the resources that I gave you? This is godly principle number 1, is that the Most High, the Creator, expects accountability. He expects a reckoning of what did you do with the resources that I provided to you. So we're not just on this planet during our lifespan just to suck up the air and use the resources. Our job is to leave a mark that cannot be erased, and a mark that will lead to future generations becoming better and better. So everything is a continuous improvement, if you will. So the master comes back and says, well done, thy good and faithful servant. Come enjoy the real wealth that I have for you. Same thing with the one with the 2 talents that gave the 2. But the one talent person, and this is what we want to focus on, the first thing he did was make excuses as to why he buried that talent. Oh, I knew you were a hard master, reaping where you don't sow. Here's your talent back because I didn't want to do anything to mess up or lose what you gave me. Here's what you have back. And the first thing the master said, you wicked and lazy steward. Let's focus on that real quick. So, wicked and lazy, that's pretty strong language.
It is.
When you talk about lack of accountability, and Jesus is talking about this in a parable, but it parallels because it said at the beginning of the chapter, the kingdom of God is like. Then he gives this description about this scenario. So wicked and lazy is someone who's number one in fear. It says God's not giving us a spirit of fear, but a power, love, and of a sound mind. 2 Timothy 2:7. And fear is a spirit. It's a situation where it paralyzes you. So that's number one. Number two, my second question is, with this wicked and lazy servant, where was the collaboration? If you felt like you were weak in a certain area, or if you felt like you needed more information, the first thing you should have did was collaborate with the one with the 2 talents and the one with the 5 talents. And again, going back to our first podcast about putting your ego aside, because at the end of the day, you have a task to accomplish. You're not going to accomplish that task with ego, pride, because pride comes before destruction and a haughty spirit before a great fall. As managers, your responsibility is to seek out information to get the job done, whether it's a project, whether it's just a task that you're given. And so this is very important, wicked and lazy. And actually, the Bible goes on to say toward the end of that verse that he was put out, and where there was weeping and gnashing of teeth, and take his 1 talent and give it to the person with the 5 talents, because the Creator loves productivity. So the people that are most productive, they're going to be the most successful in life.
Yeah.
And you can see that across all areas of industry, anything that you want to point to. The people that are productive are the ones that usually are the most wealthiest, usually are the most influential, so on and so forth. So poverty is always a result of lack of productivity. We talked about that before. If you can get rid of the lack of productivity, you will eliminate poverty.
Yeah.
So that's very interesting. That is deep, isn't it?
Because, when you think of poverty, it's such a worldwide thing, and to say like this is like the one reason, or this is the thing that can cure it, is deep, because you got to really take that in and see it. And with you, I know in your book you discuss stewardship and us all having a role here in the divine law of our nature. Our purpose here is somehow to fulfill a divine desire of the Lord, which is to live out your purpose. You can't hide talents. You can't move with ego and pride, because you have this divine purpose here to be a steward of the earth. And I want to hear more about the godly steward, like from your perspective and how you explain in the book. Can you go more into detail with that godly steward?
Sure. That's a good point, Ashanti. But let me finish up a critical statement at the end of this parable. Jesus goes on to say, to him who has, more will be given, and he will be in abundance, like we talked about. And him who doesn't have, even that which he has will be taken away. In translation, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, because there's a principle there, again, because of lack of productivity. The ones that basically are operating in productivity and operating in their purpose, they automatically will rise to the top. Because it says a rich man's wealth is his strong tower, and a poor man's poverty is his destruction. That's in Proverbs. You can look that up. But the point I'm making is that's a harsh statement, if you really think about it, because at the end of the day, you have something to say about where you are in life. As a manager, as an individual, running the families, whatever have you, we are given this powerful responsibility of being stewards, and it requires knowledge and wisdom. And human knowledge and wisdom only goes to a certain point. Again, we talk about discernment, we talk about some of these other things. The one talent person that had the 1 talent, the first thing you should have did was recognize his weaknesses. And that he had a responsibility to do something, even with the one talent. It wasn't how many talents the person had, is what are you doing with what you have now? So many people want to go from A to Z, they want to be promoted, they want to do certain things, but they haven't gone through the paces. They haven't gone through the life lessons that needed to be done. Why? To develop character and integrity. Those are the key things. So the first thing, if I'm the one talent person, I'm going to humble myself, get with the person with the 2 talents, the person with the 5, because obviously the fact that they've had more in quantity, obviously the master felt that they were a little bit more skilled. But I am going to collaborate with them, find out what needs to be done, and I'm going to benefit, because he came back and said, at least you could have taken my money and put it in the bank and got interest and gave something back to me. You didn't even do that. That's why he called them wicked and lazy, because it was a lack of productivity. Now, from a biblical perspective, we have a couple of points that I talk about in the book. And one of the things is, again, our godly responsibility. We own nothing. A lot of people talk about my house, my car, my this, my that, my kids. Really, at the end of the day, we're just managers. We're glorified managers. It says the earth is the Lord and the fullness thereof, and they that dwell in it. We are just here as an expression of the God expression to, I should say, bring out the talents that we already have. We're all individuals. So it's something that you have that nobody else on this planet could do. Now that's deep. I told you there's about 8 billion people on the planet, approximately. So whatever you have as an individual, no one else can do. That's key. That's what you got to understand. So you have to figure out, what is my purpose? What am I supposed to do? And if I'm given a certain task, how can I operate in excellence? And I think that's important. Again, we talked about accountability. That's a word that society doesn't like to use, because it looks like it's a criticism or whatever have you. No, it's just being responsible. It's recognizing that this is what I can do, this is what I can't do. And because of that, what I'm going to do is seek out resources. I'm going to meditate. I am going to go and humble myself and get with people that have more experience and more knowledge than I have, and try to understand and get different options and opinions. It says there is safety in a multitude of counsel. That's also in Proverbs 2 as well. If you get a chance, you need to read that. That book is very deep. But the point I'm making is, to your point, is the parable of talents really, to me, is a principle that I've used. Whatever is in your management sphere of influence, that's what I'm responsible for. Yeah. So if something goes wrong, I don't point the finger at anybody else, because it's 3 pointing back to me. What did you or did not do? So in project management, there's something called a lessons learned register. Anybody that knows project management principles, there's 49 processes. One of the processes, if things go wrong in the project, you're supposed to list all the things that went wrong and how you would correct those mistakes and those errors. Why? Because at the end of the day, what you're trying to do is you're trying to get better. No one knows everything. And so the next time that you come across these things, obviously it's something that you can master. But everybody wants to skip steps in this society right now. They don't want to go through the paces. They don't want to go through the trials and tribulations to develop their character, their problem-solving skills. And what you're trying to do is bring out what the Creator has put in you. You're trying to bring that out and have it to the forefront. You don't know what's in you until you're squeezed and put under pressure. So I think that's some of the things that I thought about. And really, stewardship is a gift. It's a gift because at the end of the day, the Creator has basically allowed us to participate in this grand scheme of creation and whatever processes that the Creator has for us, so that at the end of the day, we can achieve what it is that we're here for. Like I said, we're not here to suck up the air, take up resources. We're actually here to make a difference, and I think that's important. So
I think that's important too. And you talked about like knowledge and wisdom. I know that there's also an ancient saying of knowing thyself as well, which once you learn who you are and what your talents are, your gifts are to this world, that you can present, that will make it better here for majority of the world, not just yourself. I think that is the key as well, which a lot of people are just lost. They just don't know themselves. And if they do have a talent, talking about work-wise, it's always attached to some type of reward system.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not going to show my talent because you guys are not paying me enough.
Mm-hmm.
You pay me for this one job. Why would I bring the rest of what I do to the table? Because I don't see the money adding up. So it's always kind of this kind of reward system, I guess, like positive reinforcement, which we all kind of were conditioned on growing up. If you were in a household similar to myself, you know, you did a good thing, you took the garbage out without your parents asking, you were rewarded with money, you were rewarded with some time to go hang out with your friends. I think that kind of go back to the same source of I'm going to hide my one talent that I know will actually benefit the whole, because I'm not getting rewarded. And I get that's probably why that person in the Bible was getting called wicked, and you know, because it's a selfish thing. Like, you're looking to be fulfilled, you're still looking at your desires, and you're not looking at the better whole of all to benefit from it, because you're looking for something for yourself. So I get how that can be called wicked, which we often encounter in these corporations and jobs. I hear it all the time. It's almost to the extent where now it's normal to hear it, where you will hear people say, that's above my pay grade, or I'm not going to do any more than what I'm getting paid for. And it's almost like it's two sides to that. Because it's like, one side's like, yeah, you don't want to get overworked, you don't want to be overwhelmed, you're already doing enough. Then here they are wanting to use your personal talent. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, in this world, it's kind of hard to have that type of discernment on whether or not that person is really wicked, or are they really being wise. So I want to know, like, what's your perspective on that discernment part of that when it comes to how we live today? And yes, this world can eat you up if you allow it to. And that person is like, I'm going to keep this talent to myself because I don't feel like it's going to serve me any better.
Sure.
Like, what is your perspective now?
Boy, you always have these tough scenarios that you
Sorry. This is raw, y'all. We coming raw. Like, none of this is pre-rehearsed, so sorry, Ernest.
No, don't be sorry. No, I actually like that. I think, we talked about earlier, if you look at some of our previous podcasts, we talked about the three main ways that a person becomes who they are: is observation, association, and teaching. Some of those things are from family members, authority figures, and life experiences, right? Some of those things can be good, most of them are not. Again, we go back to 2 Corinthians 4:4, where it says that Satan, if you look up that word, our priest adversary, is basically the prosecuting attorney. In other words, he's also referred to as the accuser of the brethren. He's also one that sets up this world system. The world system is based on the five senses, the flesh, and intellectualism. It is not based on spirit. So what ends up happening is a person's feedback, if it's not coming from a spiritual or a truth side of things, and it's only coming from natural feedback, that's the highest you can get to. Some people have better authority figures that have helped them out in the past, and most people have not. So to your point, if I get pressured to perform, or if I'm pressured to do something that's outside of my comfort zone, there's something called the law of vision. You can't go where you can't see. I always talk about that. You can't put a square peg in a round hole. Either you have it, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he, and your image dictates your direction. So if I don't have it, I can't go anywhere. The one talent person didn't have a stewardship mentality. They had a preservation mentality. Because again, the first thing he did was, not only did he make excuses to his masters, he says, you're a wicked man or an unjust man, you sow where you haven't reaped. So in other words, he already knows, and that could be true, but his point was, he still put you into a position of stewardship, and he still expected you, regardless of his situation. What are you going to do with that? So to your point, people that don't want to go any further, they want to hide, they want to bury their talent, they just want to do what they want to do. But at the end of the day, you're not operating for man's approval. You're operating for the approval of our Creator, who gave you the talent. He's the boss, ultimately. And promotion doesn't come from the east, the west, north, and south. It comes from God himself. So what I'm doing has nothing to do with that. Even if I feel that I've been slighted, or I'm not getting paid enough, or I'm not being recognized, I ask that the works of my hands are blessed. And so I ask for knowledge and wisdom to advance me to the point where I could be in a room with 5 PhDs and I'm going to run rings around them, because they're operating. Nothing against education, nothing against all of that. I go to school if you have to do that, right? But I'm saying, don't let that be your limit. Right. Because I could be in a room with 5 PhDs and I'm going to run rings around all of them. Why? Because I've asked for knowledge, wisdom, and I can get one download, or I can get an idea that has never been heard from before that can make you a multimillionaire in a month. But you got to understand that that's available to us. But we have to put a demand on it. Again, you're a spirit, you have a soul, and you live in the body. So we're not just natural people having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual people having a natural experience. Yeah. So you got to flip that around. So again, it comes back to a person has to be teachable and reachable. You have to understand your limitations. I don't care how high up you get in life. You still never, ever stop learning. You never, ever stop growing, ever. Once you do that, that's when you are on a death spiral, in my opinion. So you have to put away, or you're thinking that, maybe during this time, I'm not as sought out, or I'm not on the top, or the senior leadership, or whatever the case is. But the works of your hands, if you are diligent, it will bring you in front of kings and priests at some point. It will bring you to where you need to be. The key is, regardless of whether or not you see results or not, you have to be consistently consistent. In other words, it's what I do regardless of whether or not I get the fanfare, the praise, the money, the accolades, the influence. This is who I am. So I'm not changing that. So to the day that I get off this planet, I am going to be consistently consistent as far as my principles, how I operate, and that I know will bring me at some point. They will have to recognize you because you will be operating at a level that has never been seen before in that particular field or industry. And regardless if they can't stand your guts, they're going to have to still promote you and give you your just due at some point. So practice these principles of being a steward. It's very important because we've been mandated to do so. And you can't bury your talent in the sand because, again, if the Creator is looking at it as lack of productivity, and notice he came back to get an account of what it is that you did with what I gave you. So notice, I want to point out, he didn't tell them what to do specifically. He didn't tell them how to increase the talents that he gave them. He didn't give them any direction. He gave it to them and left. And he said after a long time, he came back. So that's another thing too. Just because people are not looking or whatever have you, you still need to be consistently consistent. Because you never know when you're going to be called on the carpet for what it is that you've been given. And you want to always make sure you have a good report.
I agree. And I guess that goes into what you mean by kingdom management being the key. Because we are kind of operating out of this. The kingdom of God is within you. I'll never forget that quote from Jesus. And I think that is the case with us. That's what's operating constantly, whether we recognize it or not. And it is a gift because that management on the inside work comes out externally. No matter what it is that you're doing, that part of you is always going to show. You know what I mean? So I think that's what I'm interpreting. That's what I'm getting from you when you say, like, you're going to get recognized, you're going to get the promotion because you were able to tap into that kingdom within you and really come forth in that spirit, which is not always an easy thing to do, especially when we're talking about these high positions. No, it almost seemed like, am I meant for that type of position because I am operating into that tapped in part of me? Will it fit in with the societal standard of kind of putting that to the side and working with the ego and, this cutthroat nature sometimes that are in corporations? Yes. Do it really, where do that person fit in at? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, that's interesting because something came to my mind while you were talking. And one of the things that I tell my sons too as well, I said, obedience is better than sacrifice. I think it's somewhere in 2 Samuel where Saul was doing some crazy stuff and he was supposed to kill all the cattle and do all that stuff, and he wanted to keep the best part to himself, but he was going against what God wanted him to do. And he made an excuse to the prophet Samuel that, oh, I was trying to sacrifice. And that's when he made the statement, obedience is better than sacrifice. And what does that really mean? And so to your point, being obedient is just being diligent. Being diligent to what God told us to do as it relates to operating in excellence, understanding that, to your point, the kingdom of God is in you. So I'm loaded. We're all loaded with everything that we need to really put us at a level that we've probably have never been before, as it relates to that. But I always say obedience is better than sacrifice, because I'd rather do what I'm supposed to do up front, whether it hurts or whether it's a hard process. Now, when you get into sacrifice, now you're talking about something got to die. Now we're talking about bloodshed. Now we're talking about some ugly stuff that now we have to deal with. And so for me, you're going to have to go that route regardless. It's just how you're going to do it. And it's unfortunate that in our institutions, whether it's religious institutions, educational institutions, political institutions, what I call the 7 mountains of influence, right? It's controlled by a worldly system that is antithetical against God's order. Right. And again, it promotes human intellectualism. It promotes ego, self-gratification, selfishness, and the like. Those things go diametrically opposed to the kingdom, because at the end of the day, whatever it is that you're doing that's going to ultimately bring you what you think is personal success is going to affect regions. Yeah. So what you do is not just for us four and no more. It is for regions. It's for regional territory, regional influence. I want to leave a mark that that people can say, hey, Ernest was here and look at all the stuff that happened. Not so I could toot my own horn, but the point is that as many people that you can affect is very, very important. That's our job, because regional territory is here. God gave this world to us. This is our planet. This is what we've been entrusted with, right? And so when you talk about management, when you talk about all of these things, you have to take it personal. That if there's any deficiencies or things that you don't understand or don't have any type of understanding on, you better go seek that out. And sometimes you got to turn the TV off, turn the social media off. Sometimes you got to pray, meditate, and really think on some of the things. You'll be surprised how things just drop into your spirit. You're like, man, I didn't think about that. As scholarly and erudite as I usually am, there's times where once I plugged into that, I'm going, man, how come I didn't think about that before? With everything going on. It's because it's not just the natural, it's the spiritual part of it too as well. As project managers, leaders, directors, again, I talk about it ad infinitum: conflict resolution, collaboration, change management. These are things that have to be done. It is an awesome responsibility, because it's not just being a subject matter expert. You have to look at everything in this totality, because again, this is your management sphere of influence. So whatever you have around you, whatever you've been given, and who's ever under your guide and tutelage, that is your responsibility, and you're going to be held into account of what you did with what it is you were given. He who is just in least is just in much. He who's unjust in least is unjust in much. In other words, if you can't handle $5, you can't handle 500, you can't handle 5,000, 5 million. The number doesn't matter. The matter is, how do you go from state to state, from level to level, from glory to God? How do you do that? And so, again, I don't think people are aware of it, because, again, society is all about self-gratification. It's all about this, what I call, our pastor, Living Word Christian Center, Bill Winston, always talked about 3D versus 4D, right? And so 3D is all of this natural stuff, all this education, intellectualism. And what you're going to find out on the planet coming up soon, in the next couple of months, next couple of years, we're running into problems that cannot be solved naturally. We're running into situations that we've never seen before, whether it's in the weather, whether it's in the politics, whether it's crime, society, or whatever the case is. It's going to call for supernatural solutions to deal with these things that are coming up, because what I call the kingdom of darkness that's actually trying to shape this narrative is actually getting more intense. You're seeing a lot of crazy things on the news and things of that nature. So how do we come above that? How do we, in all the chaos and everything that's going on, we still rising to the top, right? We're still doing that. And it's not necessarily based on education. It's not necessarily based on what family I came from and this, that, and the other. No, anybody can do it because everybody has a talent that no one else has. Your job is to work that out. Everything is in seed form. So it's not given to you all at once. In other words, you don't get the oak tree right away.
Right.
It comes as a seed. So what do you got to do? You got to water it. You got to keep the weeds out. You got to make sure it gets enough sunlight. And you don't know. You sleep and rise day by day by day. And next thing you know, it becomes a little tree, a little stub, and then it grows. And then next thing you know, you got a full-grown oak tree that's taking care of the birds of the air and everything else. It's providing shade for people. So you just don't go from A to Z. You have to really put the work in to make sure that you're being very, very intentional about what you're doing. But again, it's self-awareness and having these spiritual principles. That's why I always encourage everyone to continue for continuous improvement. That's another project management terminology in the 49 processes as well. Why? Because you want to get to the point where you can get it as tight as possible and it's second nature to you. So it's not something that you have to struggle with. It should come easily and naturally to you.
Yeah. And I see that you mentioned in your book too that the mismanagement of self, you lose. And I see that in my generation, you know, we have a lot of conspiracy about sacrifices and all of that things. And we see these rappers, actors, entertainers that just was at one point up here. And now we seeing humiliation acts on television, like what happened. And it kind of get me back to when you mentioned if somebody never had $5 to manage and then was given $5,000, how do you think they're gonna do with that? And I feel like it kind of hit home right there with this, what we see, what I just mentioned. A lot of these rappers, actors, entertainers that also are in the work industry are giving this big amount of money that they've never had before, and we're wondering like, why they just doing all this crazy stuff now? They never even managed $5. A lot of them come from homelessness, like the poverty that you mentioned, and then you give them all this money to give them some form of fame and sell them to the masses, and you're over the control of them because you're giving them the money. I think that that's on all realms, and this is why I feel like you make that point to know how to manage yourself, because if you don't know how to manage yourself and the gifts that's given to you, anybody can come and manage you and basically take your soul, what they say, sell your soul and all that stuff like that. You give it to others because you have never learned the art of yourself, of who you are, and it's easy for anybody to mold and tell you who you are, you know, and that's how that society is created, of kind of like the pimps exist thing, the managers that can just, you look to them for validation, you become so attached to these jobs and titles because you never really learn who you were outside of that. So I think that you hit it on the nail with saying that in the book and making that a case in point. And then also I want to ask you, what in the Bible relates to that? Like to your point of like the management of self, where you're not getting so much, somebody else is able to come in and tell you who you are, what you should be doing. This is how you do it, and basically you done for at this point because you never learned yourself.
Yeah. Well, wow. You said a mouthful, right? So I'm just kind of thinking like, how can I break this down? Like, oh man, that's you know.
Wait, I guess it kind of gives like, okay, so remember when Jesus was on the mountain, right?
I was just getting ready to go there. Yep,
and
Luke
Lucifer came, and he was offering him the worldly things because he wanted him.
You want me to break that down real quick? You want me to break that down because
please.
That just shows we're on the same page with that. Again, let me back up, right? So spiritual, biblical things, whatever, things that are on a higher level, you can't just read something and think you got it the first time, right? And so I'm not saying people got to be Bible scholars or anything like that, but there is a difference between, and I think in the Greek it's logos and rhema. Logos is the written word. So it's like I read a book or I read something, oh, that was nice, this, that, the other. Rhema is now I have a revelation. Now I have a deeper meaning And you can read something 99 times, and then the 100th time you're like, how I didn't see that. You know, and again, that's why the Bible is a coded book. So I'm not going to go on to all of that. But to your point, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Where do you get your identification? Your identification is the Christ consciousness. And what Jesus did when he was on the planet, he provided a example for how we're to overcome these things that you're talking about. So let's go to the temptation. So it's very interesting. People read that. I think it's in Luke 4 and Matthew 4. Go look it up. You know, you can Google it. Jesus' temptation on the mountain. It was very interesting. People don't realize that he was fully God and fully man at the same time. And in order, because again, I told you that the enemy is a legalist. And so he couldn't operate as God. He had to operate understanding what it means to be a human. So he still had part God, part man. And so he was able to understand our infirmities, our weakness, but yet he didn't yield to temptation and sin and things of that nature. So why is that important? Because now you have an example to follow. So after 40 days, which interesting, 40 represents trial, temptation, or test. Anytime you see the number 40. So the earth was flooded for 40 days. You know, Goliath taunted Israel for 40 days before his head was taken off his body by David. You can go on and on and on. So after 40 days, Jesus was hungry, he was weak, he was tired. So all three of the temptations that the devil coming down to him, they were flesh temptations. Turn these stones into bread, right? You're hungry, you need to eat. First thing, in all three of those cases, he said, it is written, it is written. What was he doing? He was going back to, in the beginning was the Word was God, the Word was God. John chapter 1, verse 1. So he was going back to the foundation of, regardless of what the situation is, the Word is going to be the dictatorial, or the truth is going to be the dictatorial process of what I'm going to operate in. So turn these stones into bread. Man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of God. What is that? So basically, any truth that comes in is going to feed me. It's going to feed me on all levels. It's going to feed me physically, spiritually, emotionally, everything else. That was number one. Throw yourself down off this mountain, have the angels take, you know, it says the angels take charge of you and all of this. So that's ego, right? Because, you know, if you're God, if you're operating in the God principle, then angels are supposed to, which it's half truth and a half lie. Angels are supposed to minister to us who are heirs of salvation. It talks about that in Hebrews chapter 2. But he said, throw yourself off this mountain. And, you know, he said, you should not tempt the Lord your God, and him only should you serve. Then the biggest one that you just mentioned about all of the elite of the earth and things of that nature that have taken a shortcut. Look at all of the principalities and powers and countries, and look at the glory. If you look up the word glory, that's wealth, that's influence, that's all of that. I will give it to you because it has been given to me. How can he make that statement? Adam and Eve had the whole earth under their control until the fall. Go back and read Genesis chapter 3. When they fell, all that was given to the enemy, and now he's now the God of this world system. What does that mean? So now everything is set up to the point where systems, principalities are operating in a false truth. If you shortcut this thing, and he was trying to get Jesus basically to shortcut his mission. What he didn't realize, and I talk about in the book about squatters' rights. I talk about that. A squatter is somebody, think they own something, and you know they're basically masquerading as I own this house. Well, what do you do with a squatter? I got to call them people and have that squatter removed up out of there, right? Yeah. And otherwise, if you don't do that, that squatter is going to continue to think that that squatter owns that house, and I can sit here and act like this is mine, and it's not. So what Jesus said is, hey, this is already mine, and I'm going to strip it from you, and I don't need to shortcut anything, because at the end of the day, you're perpetrating a fraud. So then, if you look at it from that point of view, all of these elite people, the rappers, you talk about all these other folk who haven't had anything or have been in a certain situation. That's why in 2 Timothy it talks about the love of money is the root of all evil. It didn't say money was evil. It said the love of money. Why? Because it said that people will do all kind of things to get it. But what they don't realize is it's a shortcut. And you're doing it not based on kingdom principles, but based on a worldly system. And at any time that rug can be pulled from under you because it's based in falsehoods. Yeah. In other words, the truth is going to come out. And whatever you did to compromise to get, you got to compromise to keep.
Yeah.
Don't ever forget that. So you have to be very, very careful about what system you decide you want to operate in. So again, it goes to observation association teaching. Unfortunately, a lot of people haven't been taught that. And there's a lot of pressure in this world to have all of the trappings and be on social media. Hey, I'm doing this. Look at yourself. Blah, blah, blah. All of that. Ego. That's what it is. But it's a false reality.
Yeah.
And at some point, you're now under compromise. And you can see it all the time when people are compromised. And what you're going to find in this country coming up in the next couple of months to a year, you're going to find a lot of people that you looked up to are going to be in some hot water because of stuff that they've done behind closed doors in secret to get to the power positions that they have. And you're going to be shocked. I'm just going to say that. I'm not going to say any more about it. I know it's coming. I got information about it. And you're starting to see that now in the media. So what do? We have to get to the truth. The truth will strip everything else down to its most basic elements. So at the end of the day, no compromise, integrity, being consistently consistent, having discipline. Certain things you got to turn down just because, hey, I don't want to go that route.
Yeah.
Because why? It's already mine. I don't need to compromise anything. Jesus basically told the devil, I'm going to strip this from you anyway. So I don't need to go your route. And I know temporarily you're in control, but that's not going to last. And so, but a lot of people have been on that and have taken the deal and have done the deals in the secret in the dark. And it's really unfortunate because it only lasts for a short period of time.
That's what I was going to say. I'm like, what makes it the false reality is because it's temporary. It's not everlasting. The kingdom of God is everlasting. Knowing thyself is everlasting. It's not something that's going to come and go. It's all the desires that are offered to you as a self-sacrifice for you to fulfill those temptations, get everything you want while you're here, get the luxury of life, live better than the next person, get all the riches, the girls, the jewelry, the house, because this is a way of life. If that was the case, why do we have millionaires committing the S word? Why do we have millionaires still sick in the head?
Now you're going deep now.
Sorry, I'm working the Da Vinci Code here. I mean, I feel like this is good. Like, I feel like this needs to be discussed because this is the world we in. It is dark. It is upside down. And it is things that I feel you have to kind of be a martyr and don't be afraid to speak the truth. And I just feel like, all of that exists, that other part of the world exists, which you already told ancient wisdom, don't give yourself to this world because it's temporary. It's not something that lasts forever. And I think that is what they see in the end. It's like, damn, I gave all of this myself, I sacrificed my family and love itself from what really mattered to me for riches and gold, and now I'm sick, I'm depressed, I don't have anybody, I'm sad, I don't want to live. You don't even have the will to live anymore after such sacrifice. All for the glory and fame of others. That's temporary, it goes away. You know what I mean? So it's like, I like that you hit on that as far as the false reality. To me, that's what defines the false reality, is that it's not for real because it's not everlasting. It's not something that you can hold on to in the end. You know what I mean? Well,
that's again, you hit on something else too that it's funny, operating the kingdom principles. Jesus talked about the rich man. There's another parable in there about the rich young steward and about he wanted to know what he needed to do to get into the kingdom, and he went through this whole exercise about the different commandments, so on and so forth. And then he said, one thing you lack, go sell what you have, give to the poor, take up the cross and follow me. He was sad that saying and left. And so, Jesus, the first thing he said was, it's easier for a person to go through an eye of neither than a rich man in the kingdom of heaven. So people stop there, and then here we go with the religion again. Oh, well, the rich people, you're not supposed to have money. You're not supposed to do all of that. That's not what he said. Because if you keep reading in the scripture, the first thing the disciples said, well, wait a minute. Then who can be saved? Because in other words, the disciples that understood it, even if you have any type of level of truth, it will bring you into a certain wealth space. It will bring you into a certain level of these things that we're talking about naturally because they have to translate. But what he said is how hard it is for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God. What he was saying is you can't serve God and money. You can't serve God and power, wealth, and what this earth.
You can't have two masters.
You can't have two masters. So at the end of the day, why don't you love people and use money and not use money and love people? Use money and love people and not use people and love money. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So there is a way, a sweet spot. He even said that anybody that's taken up, their life for the kingdom will receive 100-fold now with persecution. Now that's interesting because the persecution is not sickness and disease. It's people not understanding you. It's people that are going to ridicule you because you're not operating in the way they think you should operate in this world system. Why you're not depressed? Why you're not upset? Why you're not worried like we are?
Yes.
But yet at the same time, the economy's going down, but yet you're still moving. You still have opportunities and things like that. And really that's an opportunity to then get into, well, these are the principles that I follow, right? And there is a way that's above this world system. If you're just on this world system, you will be depressed. You will be jacked up. You will have these crazy thoughts and things of that nature. Why? Because it's a dry well. To your point, anything that's not based in truth is going to blow up anyway. It's just a matter of time. You can dress up a pig, but it's still a pig. You know, they always say, this one thing, this guy brought the pig in and he was outside in the slop and they put a tuxedo on him and cleaned him up and everything. But the thing about it, he left the back door open. What do you think that pig did? He went right back out to that slop again. Why? Because it's his nature to go out and play in that slop. Right. And so if you don't deal with the nature of something, it's going to continue to manifest.
Yeah. So
these things, a lot of people just don't understand. And they're being fooled and they're being tricked into thinking that, I got something and this is going to make me happy and this, that, the other. If you're not operating your purpose, you will never be truly fulfilled anyway. You may be good at something, but it may be something that you shouldn't be doing. And you really have to and I'm talking to me, I'm talking to you, everybody that's listening to this. Get your purpose and find, that's why everybody talking about, I need to retire and this. Retire, that ain't even in the book. Like, what are you talking about? like, if you think about it, what kind of construct is that? It's kind of like you never retire. The only time you retire is when you cease to exist on this planet. That's when you retire, in my opinion. You always want to do something because it's effortless. It doesn't cause you any pain. And it's something that you naturally do and you can do it for free. Yeah. That's when you know you're in the zone. That's when you know you're in the sweet spot. And guess what? Everything is in there. The provision's in there. The accolades are in there. This, that, the other. Always remember that you own nothing. It has nothing to do with you. Even if you do reach a certain amount of success, I know where my success comes from. It's not me. It's God in me. It's the ability that I've been placed and the opportunity that I have to serve in whatever capacity it is. Yes. My vision is different than yours and everybody else. Everybody has a purpose, and I can't then try to copy what you're doing just because you're successful. Let me do what Ashanti does. Well, that's going to cause a problem because guess what? I haven't walked in your shoes. I don't know what you dealt with. And that might not even be what I'm designed for. I'm supposed to do X, and I'm trying to do something else. That's why the Apostle Paul in the Bible says to compare yourselves with yourselves is not wise. Because, again, everybody has a different purpose. So you really have to dig that out. And I want to really drum that point home, is that we really have to focus on what it is we're supposed to do. So management is nothing different. Stewardship is nothing different. You have to take care of what you've been given before you can give something else. The one with the 5 talents was commended. The one with the 2 talents was commended. Why? Because they grew what it was that they had. The 1 talent guy that went to bury himself, fear, resentment, he's talking about the boss, all of that kind of stuff. Listen, I know people's work environments are not good and things of that nature. You're not doing this for people. This is for your self-development. And at some point, if you're diligent enough, they may hate your guts, but they won't have to acknowledge it at some point. Or you may be led to go somewhere else where it will be acknowledged. And then you'll have 3 times as much you had originally. So again, you have to be in tune with that, and you just can't go along to get along. That's the problem. So it's interesting you mentioned that, because that's the first thing that came to my mind was like, wow, that's That was definitely a mouthful there.
Yeah,
So.
and your book is Principles and Processes for the Law of Biblical Mechanics. The principles that we stick to, I think, too, is of value. It's about your principles. So my principle and values could be, I want to demonstrate compassion. Wherever I go, I'm going to be compassionate. I'm going to have empathy for others. Like a balancing of divine principles. You know what I mean? It's not, then another person's principles can be, well, I'm in it because I'm going to feed off whatever this person give me because this person can benefit me at the end of the day, put some money in my pocket. That's your principle. That's how you made up. So when you talk about the nature of people and where they come from, you have to have a certain discernment, because if you can read, like you can read a person to see what their real values and principles are set based on their actions. Like, oh, you only talking to me because you're trying to get some insight to make yourself look good.
Yeah.
You're not even genuinely caring about, and I can always tell because a person will come up to you and be like, they'll start off like they care. They'll be like, how your day going so far? And you're like, oh, it's good, thanks for asking. And the next so what did you do when you had that ABCD? And you like, did you even really care how my day was? You know what I mean? Like, you gotta watch that.
For about 2 seconds.
For 2 seconds. But let's get to the point. I need for you to help me get my job done. So the agenda of others, I think, is how you set up. You have to watch your own agenda, watch your own principles. What are you really in it for?
Yeah.
What are you really waking up? What's waking you up every day and make you say, okay, I'm gonna walk this walk, I'm gonna talk this talk, because this is where my values are. Am I really a divine steward of this earth, or am I just in it to get what I can, milk the cow? You know what I mean? So I think it starts with you identifying your principles and values as well, to really be the truth of what are you doing here. You know what I mean?
Well, it's interesting, and I'll close with this. People talk about the quote last days and how things are, getting more intense on the planet. And if you go to 2 Timothy chapter 3, verses 1 through 11, again, I'm throwing these scriptures out. You can kind of go do your own research. We talk about wars and rumors of wars, pestilences, nations against nations, which is ethnos group against ethnos group. All of these things that are happening, that the kingdom of darkness is trying to stir up these things as we're getting into this kingdom reality that's getting ready to come. But I find it interesting, in the first verse of that chapter, it says that in the last days, the description is not of wars, not of pestilences, but that people would be lovers of their own selves. Then it goes into being proud, boasters, truce breakers. Vanity, unthankful, ungrateful, disobedient to parents, unthankful. That all of these things that you talk about, and I had to meditate on that. I said, wow. So he's given the characteristics of how people would be acting in this time period that we're in now. But the first thing he said was that people would be lovers of their own selves. It's about 3 people: I, me, and mine. And it's not about the whole, it's not about the collective. That's how you know that we are totally off the rails when it comes to that. Because selfishness is a construct that is based on fear. Because if somebody else gets too big of the pie, what piece is going to be left for me?
Right.
What they don't realize is there's 12 other pies in the oven. All you got to do is get one. I don't know how I got on that, but again, it goes to stewardship, because it's not just about you.
Yeah.
It's not about exalting myself and look at how great a person I am. No, what am I doing to leave a legacy for everyone else? This whole management concept, you should affect regions. People should be talking about you long after you're gone. That's how I know you've done your job. And a lot of times people are only concerned about themselves and not concerned about the next generation, any of that type of thing. They're only concerned about them. And that's a wrong construct. And as the original parable, you're going to have to give an account for that. Nobody's going to escape. Like, what is it that you did with what I gave you? While you sitting up and asking, I need more of this, I need more of that. Well, wait a minute. Metrics is always a part of project management, right? That's the only tangible way I can measure whether or not something's been successful or not. Yeah. So what did you do with what I gave you? So does it make any sense if you can't do $5, I'm gonna give you $5,000 so you can squander that? And to your point, money, fame, all of that is a reflector of what's already on the inside of you. It's not going to change you. Because again, material stuff is neutral. It's neither good nor evil. It's whoever has control of it decides whether or not it's good or evil. So think about that too as well. Stop asking for more stuff and stop asking for more fame and influence. You don't know what it costs to get to that point. And God is a merciful God. He don't want to put you in a position where a certain position or a certain amount or a certain portion of fame, that'll end up destroying you.
Yeah.
If you're not ready for it.
Right.
The weight of that responsibility will crush you.
Yeah.
And too many people want to go from A to Z. They want to skip steps, and then they wonder why all this stuff is there. You know, the Bible says, consider your ways. So you need to consider what it is I'm doing. Take stock of your life. Anything that's within your management or stewardship realm, make sure that you get it together. Luke 16 talks about the unjust steward and about how he squandered his master's goods. The first thing you need to do is repent for being stupid. That's number one. And say, you know what? And it's a certain amount of humility that you have to have. Because again, you have to suppress that ego. That ego wants to get out of control and say, regardless of whether, you know, these things are weaknesses to me, that because I'm the leader and this, that, and the other, that I can do what I want to do. No, that's wrong. Because people are looking at you, and what you're doing is you're defiling many people by being stupid, number one, and not humbling yourself and realizing that I'm only as good as the people around me and the people that are my subject matter experts. If you lose focus of that, you're going to have problems, and then you're going to end up in self-sabotage. We talked about that on previous podcasts as well.
Yeah.
So I know this is like a big mouthful, but I want the audience to really get what I'm saying today. It is important. Stewardship is important, and we are all responsible, and we will be held into account of what it is. And then I say no excuses, because once you know that you're in error, you need to turn. That's what repent means, to turn and go another way. So you need to say, hey, the way I'm going is wrong. Let me go back and let me do something else, and then go and be successful. And then that's where your happiness is, when you're in your purpose, doing what it is you're doing the right way and based on the truth.
Yeah. Well, Ernest, I really enjoyed this podcast. A lot of truth was told here today. Almost, sometimes I want to say amen. I almost say amen here. We have a church.
I didn't want to get into all that, but you know, it just kind of comes out as we get to talking, because
it's real.
These things are there, and
Yeah.
I don't think people, you know, they're very oblivious to that. And you know, it says people are destroyed because of lack of knowledge, and you really are. And you want to get as much knowledge and wisdom as possible, and there's safety in the multitude of counsel. So if you don't know something, ask somebody.
Yeah. Definitely put the pride aside and ask the right questions. So, once again, this is our 9th podcast. Be sure to keep tuning in with us. Join the conversation. Reach out to Ernest if you like. All of his information is on his social media pages. Follow him at Ernest R. Roberts III, both on Facebook, Instagram, and he has his own website. You can go ahead.
RCEPLLC.org.
Yes.
Anytime you want to get together, or if you want any coaching sessions or any of those type of things, we're planning on maybe possibly doing some more speaking engagements and some more book signings that's coming up too as well. I just think the information needs to get out. And again, this is not just about me as an individual. My thing is, again, just briefly, a couple of years ago, I was led to write the book. And, you know, I never thought I'd be an author, quote unquote, and all of those type of things. But you just do what the Spirit tells you to do. And it has been very, very successful. We have Miss Ashanti here, who has definitely been pulling the strings behind the scenes and everything like that. But I really want you all to get this. I really do. I think that organizational development is something that is so important in different areas. And when it goes left and when it doesn't work out well, it destroys a lot of people. People end up leaving organizations because of people, because of structure not being correct. And I think that your job as a leader is to bring things out of people. Even if they leave your organization and do something else, you can't be afraid of that too, because people are going to grow to a certain point where they're going to want to do their own thing. Yeah. And you can't try to hold people back because of that too as well. You got to let people go and trust God. He's going to bring other people back into you to help you move forward. So this is about growing them up and sending them out. Mm-hmm. That's really what it boils down to. How many lives can you affect with what it is that you have, whatever it is, you know? And so I think that's very important. So again, you know, I appreciate the time, and it's been always a pleasure.
Always. And so stay tuned, you all. It's been a good one. Have a great week ahead, and God bless.
Absolutely. Take care. Bye-bye.